Welcome into the Trust the Plan podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Jim.
And today we're going to be talking about inherited IRAs. I know we've covered this topic before, Jim, but we just keep getting questions about this.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we have an aging population. Money's transferring hands, and the rules seem to keep changing on inherited IRAs. People aren't always sure what to do with it, so I think it's a good topic.
And I think the biggest mistake people make is making withdrawals unaware of the taxes. And the biggest question we receive is, what do we do to mitigate some of these taxes?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not aware of the rules, it can be a big tax hit. It can really, it can hurt.
So if you stick with us here, we're going to try and present the most optimal plan for you to pay the optimal amount of tax when you're receiving a beneficiary IRA. So first off, if you're the spouse, you're all good. You just put the IRA in your name as if it was yours for your entire life. And you don't have to take required minimum distributions. There's no 10-year rule. You're all set until age 73 or 75, depending on how old you are today. So to wrap it up really quick for a spouse, it's as if it was your IRA the whole time.
Yep, no tax due on the transfer. It just becomes your own IRA, and it remains pre-tax until you withdraw that money.
Now, if you are a non-spouse beneficiary, that's when everything changes and all the rules have been turned upside down in the last few years. So, Jim, if I inherit, my mom's IRA, what do I have to do?
Yeah, each year you're required to take some of the money out, but the account needs to be completely depleted within 10 years. So there is a small required minimum distribution that needs to take place each year. But the goal is, it's necessary that it's completely withdrawn within that 10-year time. So that's where some tax management can come into play.
But look, if you make the mistake of just taking it all out and putting it into your name on day one, that's the biggest mistake you can make. You're not going to have a penalty per se because it's a beneficiary IRA, but it will be fully taxed in that 1 year. And so if you have a good income and then you have a big IRA distribution, you could be paying 37% to the feds on that IRA withdrawal plus the state. And in Michigan, that's another 4%.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of some people get that money and they think, oh, well, let's take it and we can finally buy that cottage that we want or whatever, right? Well, if there was even, say, $200,000 in there, right? Now that gets tacked on to your income and it shows as income for the year. So if you were making $200 and we just put another $200 on it, we've just increased the tax due pretty significantly.
And so if you take money out of the IRA every year for 10 years, maybe an equal amount or a required minimum distribution in larger amounts at the end, you can really spread out that tax, right?
Yeah, because then you're, let's say you're only taking $25,000 out a year. Now we're only adding $25,000 to the $200 that you were already making. So it's a much more manageable tax hit. Your marginal tax rate isn't likely to increase on something like that.
So you hit the nail on the head there. It's all about optimizing the taxes, spreading out the tax liability, keeping yourself in the same tax bracket that you would have been in otherwise. The biggest mistake that we see is when people take it out all at once, and sadly it happens all the time, and they push themselves up into a higher bracket. So that's my big takeaway from tax optimization. What about from a behavioral finance point of view, when it comes to inheritances and IRAs and the mindset of taking it all at once versus, using it to benefit your financial plan?
Yeah, I think people a lot of times will look at it as found money and free money, and they'll use it to get something fun or buy something cool or, even justify it by saying, well, this is in mom's memory or dad's memory, right? And that's great, but I think just using the cottage example that I just used a minute ago, like people totally underestimate the additional expenses that come along with having a second residence. Even if that place is fully paid off, just the extra utilities, the extra toys, the extra, whatever. Things.
I believe it's about $1,000 per pontoon boat ride. We've been through this.
I've heard that before, yeah. I think that's true.
Yeah. So the IRA can then create more costs for you, right?
Right.
But also, let's think about if the money were to stay in the IRA and it was growing tax deferred for those additional 10 years, how much growth we could have, right? Yeah. If we average 7.2% on the money, ROI, we could have doubled that IRA in 10 years. And so, but let's not let's focus on taxes, but also focus on growth. And everyone's situation is different. You might need, more money in certain years, but it can still be invested for growth over that time frame.
Yeah, neglecting the compounding effect that money has is a big mistake. Being able to let that money grow. Of course, if it grows more, you're paying more tax on it, but at the end, the net result is that you will be further ahead, by that money compounding.
So if you have a beneficiary IRA or inherited IRA that you'll be taking possession of, you should reach out to a CFP, find out the best way to handle withdrawals, to optimize your tax situation, and how it best can be added into your financial plan. And if you're looking for someone, you can reach out to peakwm.com and schedule an appointment online with us.